welcome to this instructional video on the NDNA diagram generator, advanced usage and methodologies and recommended approaches to building large diagrams. So what we have here is, started out, we opened up a diagram here. You'll see at the top here, it's just, we've actually saved it as a VSDX, a Visio file. Call it stitch-example. And what it is it's an example of stitching together. We're going to build this same type of diagram. It won't look exactly the same, but very similar off of the same XML. And I'm going to, just to give us some additional room here, I'm just going to close the shape data here. And what this is by stitch example, what it is we build first, we start at the core and build two levels, and then we start at this level, and we might even start at this level with this lab, ATN lab 5K switch 3 and ATN lab 5K switch 4, and then which is one of our distribution level 5K pairs here, and then we just stitch it by basically building two levels here, which is actually this diagram, which is all this here, and then we just use arrows, and you can use different, various different means to stitch them, but basically it's an arrow showing that this device is one and the same as this device, and this device is one and the same as this device. And you can, again, you could have, 5K3 here, 5K4 here, and just redo the arrows. But basically what it's showing is you've got your WAN edge, your core, some peripheral layer 2 switches, you've got your distribution layer here, and then this just basically stitches it to where these are one and the same distribution layer, and then fans out into a bunch of other stuff. And this particular, basically stitching two diagrams here into one big diagram here, covers the majority of this site, with the exception of like a couple of management networks that we would build, which is one of the other recommended approaches that we, in large environments, that you separate, remove your management switches and build dedicated management network diagrams, which are really easy to build, even really large ones, because you're just doing a diagram that basically has your management switch in the center, and then you've got connections from all the remote devices back into the management switch. And we'll give an example of that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a new NDNA diagram, and we're going to do it based off of the same diagram that we showed you originally, that we were just looking at. So what it is we'll start off, we'll actually just build from this. You'll see the highest number of connections are these distribution layer switches, 5K switch 3 and 4, and this management switch, which has 53 connections. Again, this is where when you're dealing with large diagrams, recommended approaches, of course, analyze your number of connections, and you're going to also need to have a pretty good idea of the network topology as well, either now as you're building it, or in the long run to really adjust the layout of the network if you want it, the network, if you want it laid out in a nice hierarchical manner. So basically, and then the next highest number of connections is the core here, 18 connections, and then again you've got another big management switch here, or fairly big, I should say. So we'll build a management network here out of 16 devices, and a management network here that has 53 devices connected back into it. So we will start with, again, we're going two. So one of the other things is you never want to go more than 2 levels deep. So when you're building big diagrams, you can start, like we could have started at the core here, but we'll start again at this distribution layer. We'll build that one, then we'll build it from the core, then we'll do this in 2 separate diagrams, then we'll stitch them both together, and we'll show you that process. So you've got 5K switch 3, 2 levels. We'll go ahead and build that. And there we go. It's coming up here in about, there we go. So there's everything. And again, what we do here is we first we take 5K switch 3. And because there's so many connections, you'll see there's a little bit of lag. You just have to be patient, you know, move it where you want it and then let it do its thing. Let the CPU cycles work their magic. Same thing. So I've moved it, I let it go. It's crunching away. Okay, so that's done. That's moved. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually move or remove the core, because we're building, well, I want to bring this up and show you. We're building this part of the network right now, the distribution layer out. And we're removing the we're going to remove the core from this particular diagram because we want to remove the core because the core is going to be in here. And again, what we're doing here is stitching it, so basically this and this is one and the same as this and this. So we'll go ahead and we're going to remove the core device, and then we're going to find switch 2 and remove it as well, which is the second core. So there it is. So we remove that, and then the next additional thing we're going to remove is we're going to remove the management switch. So we know there's a management switch 1 and a management switch 2 that have a really high number of connections. There might be other devices that say management on them, and when there definitely is when we get to the core layer, but you'll see this particular device, and I'll even bring up the shape data window. So if I go ahead and highlight this device, you'll see there's 16 neighbors total. We're going to build a separate management network specifically for that device, for that management switch, and that takes all of like 2 minutes to do. And then we're going to find our other management switch. If it's on here, it might not actually be on here. So we'll take it. We're just taking a quick look around here. Okay, so it's not on there, so we're good. So basically, that takes care of this. We can do a few other little housekeeping items, like we could, create a little more separation here. And of course, in the end, we would make it look a lot better as well by creating more separation. Creating enough separation around here if we needed to see these interfaces correctly. But again, in the interest of time, we're just going to show you, the general recommended approach, and you do a little bit of moving around just to show you some approaches on moving things around to start to create separation. And what we're going to do here, we won't even save this. We're just going to keep this here, and we're going to go back home. We're going to start a new NDNA diagram, and we're going to build starting at the core 2 levels. And so we draw from the same XML. We look at the number of connections, and we're looking this way we can find it easily. So we know our core is our SW1 here with 18 connections, 2 levels deep. We go ahead and we draw that. And there we go. So now what we're going to do, same thing, is we're going to bring that to the center, and we're going to find device number 2 and bring it up a little bit. One of the things we can do here too is add in the grid line. Make that look a little better. And then what we're going to do is start to clean this up. So we're going to move things around a little bit here. We know, again, knowing the network, we know that this is the WAN edge. This is something that you're always going to have to understand the network, of course. As a network engineer, you're going to have to understand the network first before you really, know exactly how you want to lay it out. And that's just the way it is. And sorry, I'm trying to get a little order here and can't really talk and chew bubblegum at the same time. So okay, so then we want to find these devices. So we're going to just start to shift things around, and we want to grab the distribution layer, switch 3 and switch 4 as well, because we know. Okay, so this right here, I'm trying to find these big management switches. So here's one of them, management switch 2. This is the one that has 53 neighbors that we're going to build as a separate management network. So we get rid of that, and then we're going to start trying to create a little separation here. And there's as we know from, I'm going to bring up the original Stitch example here. Again, we know there's sets of what these are VPC domains, 5K, switch 5 and 6, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2. So we're gonna create a little bit of separation over here, and we've got 1. We'll find 2. There's number 2. So there's our first VPC domain. Again, it's all about just understanding the network and then just shifting things around, which is really quick. So we'll create a little bit more separation here. Take a look at this. This is that other management switch one that has 16 connections. So the one with 16 connections and the one with 53 connections those are covered in the other videos that you'll see on building management networks. So that's how we clean this up, and we build a separate management network, builds 2 other separate management network specific diagrams to clean this up. So now we've got, we just need to grab distribution layer switch 3 and 4, which we've already got. So we're going to create a little bit more separation here. Just move a few more of these around, and then we're good to go. So now we've got 3 and 4. And there's our distribution layer that we're going to stitch to the other diagram, and create a little separation here. And we've got 5K, switch 5 and 6, which are our third VPC domain here. So we've got 5K, 5 and 6 VPC domain here, 5K, 3 and 4 VPC domain distribution layer that we're going to stitch to the other diagram, and 5K switch 1 and 2. Now we'll just move these around a little bit so they look good, and got one more here, and there you go. Again, this would be cleaned up a lot better as well, but basically what you've got here now is you've got WAN edge, I'll highlight it, WAN edge, core, distribution layer, and we're going to stitch these 2 together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to design and set it as an auto size diagram. We're going to now just grab our other diagram we built, which is the same network but basically built from the where we have it just as the distribution layer fanning out. And what I'm going to do here is actually just highlight it all. Now this is really important as well. As if you notice, what I did is I just left clicked and dragged to highlight everything here, but I didn't do a Control A, and I'll do it again. So if I hit a Control A, it's going to highlight everything, including the page template here, which I don't want to copy over. So I want to copy this all over into the other diagram and stitch basically in, so it'll be one big diagram. So I just highlight it all. So that's the technique right there and recommended approach. And I just, once I've highlighted it all, hit Control C, and now I'm going to copy it over to the other diagram. the other diagram that's set as an auto size diagram. I'm just going to paste it on here. And it'll take a moment here, and it'll paste it. Once it pastes it, it's going to auto size, as you see here. So now I'll just grab it, and I'm going to drag it over. There we go. So I just needed to get rid of the shape data window, just so that the auto size page will auto size. And now what I'm trying to do is just line up this 5K switch 3 and 4 with the other one over here. So there we go. So now what I've done here is basically semi-lined up, the distribution layer 5K switch 3 and 4 with 5K switch 3 and 4. Those devices are one and the same. So now, in the interest of time, I'm going to highlight these and copy them over. So we'll take it, and this is for number 4. Take it, move it up here a little bit. Move it up just a little bit more. And again, this is more of a general example. So for this particular one, from 3 to 3, I'm just going to put it right to here. And then we get rid of that. So we can even do 2 things here. The way these are lined up more even, I could and would just line these up just like this. Or basically, as you can see here, 3 has an arrow that basically shows this is one and the same. 4 has an arrow that goes all the way over to 4. And you could even, you can even put some text in here that identifies that, the characteristics as such, that this device is the same as this device, and this device is stitched over to this device. So this is, again, one approach. And we can even, right now I just hit Control A to highlight it all, and I'll just grab it, right click it, and kind of drag it more centered. Again, cleanup stuff is more something that would be done over time as you make the diagram look better. But basically, this shows you, in under 20 minutes you can go through and build a really, really large diagram. And this is a diagram that's got everything in it. You've got your shape data, so it's a complete NDNA diagram. Every single object has got your image flash, serial number, code version, platform, host name, what type of device it is, and and all of your host name, platform, and interfaces and ports are on the connectors. Then you can start to customize the diagrams with again, just laying them out the way you want to lay it out, overlaying layer 3 using your IGP BGP flat neighbors files, and overlaying additional Cisco devices like APs, phones, WLCs, if you'd like, using your CDP neighbors flat files to find those devices, adding in cloud objects, etc., using NDNA automation to discover other vendors in the network if there's other, vendor firewalls or F5s, whatever you want to add to your diagram, you can enhance it. The other thing that you noticed here, so basically at this point, if we go here and we look at our device browser here, you'll see we basically we'll see in a separate video, you've got your management switch 2, which is those 53 connections, and management switch 1 with 16 connections. Those will be 2 separate diagrams that literally both of those are built in like 5 minutes. That's how quick that is to just separate all of that. And that's why we we recommend an approach in large data centers / sites of building dedicated management network diagrams. But we've built everything here with our highest port counts to remote neighbors, our core and distribution layers. And if you notice, everything, and else here is real small potatoes, just a real small number of connections. And then you can start to highlight devices and see what, where you need to add in and expand the network. Now also a lot of times what you might find is if you expand this particular neighbor, for example, this is probably that management switch, one of those big management switches. And if it is, as you build out the network using NDNA expand, then you can just get rid of it. So like, let's see if I expand it. If it ends up being management switch, then you can just go ahead and remove it. Then the other thing that's a good recommended approach is build your management networks first, and then you can have those, as you see here, it is that management switch here with 53 connections. So I'll go ahead and just delete it, and then clear dangling connectors. So clear dangling connectors, that'll remove it. There you go, nice and clean. Now, so what I was saying is recommended approach is build your management. If you see a high neighbor count and large management network environments, build those management net diagrams first. And again, if you look at our videos on that, you'll see how quick and easy it is to even build really large management networks with a high neighbor count. Build those first, then you can have those diagrams sitting side by side as a reference point to where, let's say if you looked at this and you go, there's, remember it from, if you remember from our general use features and parts 1 and 2, that the remote neighbors shown is going to be dynamically updating as you expand, but not as you manually delete. So now I'll just update that so it's accurate. So two neighbors shown, highlighted in purple, 3 neighbors total. So as you go around, what I was saying before is as you go around and start to build these additional networks out, as you start to expand these additional neighbors out, you can have your management network diagrams already up and running, where you can just go ahead and cross-reference those to see, like for example, if I look here and see 2 shown, 3 total, I can just cross-reference look at my management network diagram and quickly go, yeah, this is a device connected to the management network. So you would then know that this is one you don't need to worry about. This is as good as complete, because there's 2 shown, there's 3 total, but the other neighbor is the management network. So long story short, that's what I was getting at. So if you have, here's another example where this is a different situation where you've got 3 shown, 3 total. This was that core device that we got rid of. So as you're building really large networks, and especially if you're going to like stitch it together using this methodology, just make note manually or a mental note that when we first built out this portion of the network here, the distribution layer, we deleted the core because we know we were going to build the core 2 layers and then stitch it together at the distribution layer. All right, so that pretty much covers the recommended approach and methodology for building really large diagrams. And a lot of environments, like here's one diagram that covers a really large WAN edge, core, and distribution layer. You might have 2 diagrams, 3, 4, 5 diagrams just to cover your WAN edge, your public edge, your internal private MPLS WAN edge, for example, your core, distribution layer, access layer. So it depending on how big the environment is, you might have multiple diagrams in addition to having the separate management net diagrams. But that's the recommended approach, is building the network 2 layers at a time, stitching things together, and building as many diagrams as you need to cover it in the way that you want to see it, and segmenting the management net diagrams as shown in our management network diagram videos. So what I'm going to do here is clear everything here, and I want to show you one last thing. You'll notice when I cleared that too that these arrows are still here, so it only removes NDNA specific things. So I'm going to remove that as well. We'll go ahead and bring this over here. We're actually just going to start a new NDNA diagram. We're going to do this same diagram. And again, fairly large environment. We're going to build everything. And it's going to take a while. We'll go ahead and just, we'll grab it at the core. And we're going to build all levels. And it's going to take a while, as I mentioned previously. So what you got to do is just, if you're going to, build something really large, this is not going to be usable as well. So I'm doing this to show you why you need to, in large environments, stitch diagrams together. And, and this wouldn't matter, it won't matter what type of software you're using. If you've just got too much to put on there, it's going to be chaos. There's just way too many connections, and that's why we laid it out where you can build. If you small to medium networks, you can a lot of times just build the whole diagram and be done and good to go, right away on these smaller offices. But when you get into actually data centers or bigger sites / data centers, you're going to want to understand the network, start to lay it out, 2 levels at a time, stitch it together, build as many diagrams as you need to, and then build separate management network diagrams. All right, so it finally built, took a while. We are back, and as you see here, it's just out of control. How's that for a diagram? Try to sort that one out. So we did this just to show you. I mean, it took a long time to build. You basically, just have to wait if you want to try that. But you'll see that there's just, if you see a large number of connections like that, or a bigger environment, or an environment on par with that, there's just no way you're gonna. It's just insanity. There's too much going on, and it'll draw it, but there's just no way it can sort it, or any way for you to really sort it in any reasonable manner. I'll go ahead and just clear this out. But that will do it for building, recommended approaches and methodologies for building large diagrams, and be sure to check out the video on management network diagrams, which is basically a companion video to this, because it'll cover the management diagrams that are part of that same XML, basically that same site. And that's it. Thank you very much.